that because we were not hosting music festivals and we had the permit that allowed a business having a restaurant license, permitted outdoor seating, and amplified sound permit, we were within our legal rights to have live music outdoors without an additional amplified sound permit, so long as the sound stayed at or below 65 decibels from the receiving property, or the property which issues a complaint, and ended at 10 p.m. For reference, this data can be found in the Code of Ordinances 7.16. Since December, the amount of times the police have had to respond to our property for noise has increased. We consistently and willingly work with every officer that shows up in response to noise complaints. There have been complaints on nights that we have absolutely had zero music. This leads us to believe that this is not about noise or sound, but simply about a personal issue. Many times the person calling to complain wouldn't even leave an address, therefore making it impossible to read the decibel levels at the receiving property or the property complaining, which is what is supposed to be done per city code. There have been times when the dispatched officer isn't clear with the city code and how readings should be taken, and sometimes don't even show up with the decibel reader. We ask that the City Council and Eureka Springs PD clarify the ordinance and the procedure to be followed with their officers, us, and the general public. If you're not familiar with sound, and trust me, I was not familiar with sound prior to this, 65 decibels is about the loudness of a normal conversation or laughter. This means that any reading taken at or around the gravel bar, regardless of live music happening or not, so long as patrons are around and having a good time, will always be around or above 65 decibels. This is another reason why any decibel readings taken on our property are irrelevant and applying them to city code. Taking all of this into consideration, when we go behind our lodge buildings, the closest point to any of our neighbors' property lines, our readings are always below 65 decibels. With that being said, can our neighbors hear our live music? Absolutely. Is it so loud that they cannot have a conversation on their property? Absolutely not. Simply being able to hear live music coming from our property is not a valid reason to file a noise complaint. I'd like to also add that we purchased a sound decibel level meter, and it is our practice to check the monitor and sound levels at every live music performance. We have people traveling from all over the country to visit us, invest in Eureka Springs economy, and fall in love with this town. The Gravel Bar and all it has to offer, from great drinks to delicious food to live music, is not just a perk to the guests at Wanderoo Lodge, it is a spot for all of us, from locals to tourists. We have heard rumor that there's a handful of people. Do I have to stop? Okay. Thank you.
Hello, you all know my name is Jack Byrne. What I would like to talk about is it's been about a month since we talked about the speed cushions for Lower and Upper East Mountain Highway. I'd like Mr. Berry to give us an update about where we are in that process, where those 4 speed cushions are going to be placed, what about the signage, what are the plans that you have come up with for that process? We're going to actually need around 10 to 12 cushions for going all the way up to the highway. They put a speed radar on Flint Street, this time going up Flint Street from Main Street. It slowed this section of Flint down greatly. But once it was removed, the traffic sped up on Flint and went back to normal. It did not slow the traffic on Steele or Hale Street. So I want you to realize that monitoring can help, but we can't afford the radar, but we can afford the speed cushions. Now about the Douglas-Flint-Jackson intersection. I was wondering, since you all put it on the agenda for this meeting, how many council people made it to the intersection on a Saturday to actually see the major problems on first hand. I'll be glad to meet any of those to discuss possible solutions. And did any council or mayor take time to find out about how we can find out property lines for this intersection. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. To continue what David and Ethan just told you about the gravel bar, we've heard rumor that there are a
Excuse me.
handful of people.
Your name and address.
Oh, I need to unhook this? Oh, excuse me. My name is Rod Gray, and I'm one of the workers and employees of the gravel bar in Wanderloo Lodge. So we've heard rumor that there are a handful of people getting together to petition to try and change the city ordinance regarding sound and live music. And should this petition come across your desk, we hope you will take our statements today in consideration when making your decision. Not only will it affect the gravel bar, it's going to affect any venue that has an outdoor music staging area. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Lee Valens, and I'm a local here in town. I just stopped by today basically in support of the Wanderoo Lodge and Gravel Bar. As a local of 10 years, I distinctly remember a time when I would not walk past that property at night because it was kind of a no man's land. And what I have seen the place transform into over the course of the last few years is a real boon to our community. It's a clean property, it's a friendly property. They are always ceasing their live music right around the time I show up after work, which is, either well before 10 or certainly at 10. And I believe that in our tourist town in an uncertain economy, whatever we can do to just make sure that how we are enforcing rules is fair and respectful to the rules as they are written, such as for noise complaints, is very important so that we keep businesses like that around and we keep the clientele able to enjoy what they have to offer. And that is all. Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else? I think that concludes our public comments for the evening, which brings us up to our first item of unfinished business, is a discussion of Flint-Douglas intersection. Get a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All right. Ms. Green, you want to start off, or?
Well, I thought, you were going to get with Dwayne and...
We have, unfortunately, our police chief is is on vacation for a week, and so we haven't been able to get everything finalized on that. Dwayne and I have been trying to get surveys together. We did discover that the Grand Central Hotel didn't have anything filed on their surveys with the clerk's office. Mm-hmm. And we've contacted our engineers, McClellan Engineers, to see if they have anything on their surveys.
Okay.
We do have something, but it's pretty rough around over on the north side of Flint Street, but that's about it at this point in time. So we're still taking everything, and I have distributed the comments that Mr. Byrne gave us the last time to Dwayne and to the police chief, and they are in the process of post getting back to me and discussing that. Mm-hmm. So, Mr. McClellan?
I'm certain that when the property across the street, which my brother Joe had purchased a couple of years ago, before he purchased, the owner of the Grand Central had bought some of those parking spots from the gentleman that Joe bought that property from, and so I know that was surveyed out. And it was surveyed when Joe bought the I think when he bought the building, it was surveyed, and then he bought the house over on Jackson Street and sold part of it off to the Grand Central, and I know that was surveyed out. So I know there's some current things that were filed. If not, they're certainly at the title company that can be rounded up pretty easily.
Well, we looked with circuit clerk, or Dwayne did, and we couldn't find anything as far
Yeah,
as the Grand
you know,
Central.
not all surveys get filed anymore, and why, I don't know, but
I think
I know there's some out there.
I think that's what I had mentioned the last time when we were talking about it last council meeting there. If you could talk to your brother and see if he has any surveys,
I'll see what I can round up.
that would help.
I'll see what I can.
McClellan, when we did the drainage ditch down in through there, we had to have a lot of that surveyed. Now,
Yeah,
how far they went over, I don't know, but we don't, McClellan has it, so we're trying to get a hold of them so we can see where the property lines do exist on there. But it's a process that we're still doing, and I think also, council members, I sent you the suggestions too. We haven't gotten a complete item on the signage yet along up in East Mountain, but I did send you some recommendations that Dwayne and the police chief came up with some speed ramps in through there. And instead of 4, we ended up with 5, I think is noted on there. And those were a combination, I think, mostly speed ramps instead of speed bumps. So that's, at the $3,000 is what we're going to plan on for those.
Point of inquiry.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about owning the parking places by the hotel. Is that what the survey would show?
The survey would show the property lines.
it'll try and tie some of that in together. You've got 4 or 5 different property owners down there.
Yeah. My question is, if those parking spots are part of that privately owned property, how does that affect our situation or anything?
They're actually owned by the city and leased to the hotel.
Okay.
Some are.
Yeah, some of them are.
But some could be owned by the hotel?
Well, that's what part of the survey is going to find
Yeah,
out.
If that is that throw a clod in the churn?
Well, it certainly enters into the equation.
Okay.
We have to know the whole layout in order to,
That's the idea, is to try and get all the pieces to fit together and
Okay.
see how it all ties in and who has what,
Because
which makes sense. You got to get there first.
I'm not a survey maven, that's why I was asking those questions.
All right, any other questions? I will get you back, hopefully in the next council meeting, get you more information on where we are, and in the meantime, we'll get that information out to you as soon as I get it.
Thank you.
So, all right, that brings us up to item,
Which, weren't we going to, we must have missed it, we were going to give a CAPC report?
that's next.
Oh, that's
On the
next.
agenda.
Oh, it didn't get on the agenda. Okay.
No, I thought that was this meeting.
Meeting. It was,
This meeting.
It's every quarter, the second meeting of,
no, I think Mr. McClung had asked for a report. You're exactly right.
Right.
it was second.
Because I know Harry and
Yeah.
Jeff and I had stuff.
And before, I guess what we need to do is really, we should have addressed that when we were
Okay.
addressing the agenda. But that was the point. If somebody wanted to make a motion to amend the agenda, because we still haven't started the new business, and put that under item number 1.
Okay, I'll make a motion to amend the new agenda.
Okay. Mr. McClung, that was correct, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Yeah, I should have caught that earlier, too. I apologize for that. So I think, Ms. Green, you're going to give us start off with a little bit of a report with the
Okay,
CAPC?
Harry, did you have something?
Well,
Yeah.
both of y'all, whichever one wants to lead off.
I think it's pretty obvious that that what the CAPC has been doing has been paying off. Historical comparison to 2019 to 2021, food and beverages up 29.4%, lodging up 28.7%, total collections up 34,000, 29%. Year-to-date collections are up 21.65%. As far as what Paradise is doing, it's 489,800 Instagram impressions, a 15% increase from April to May. 129,700 Instagram post engagements, a 6% increase from April to May. Earned a 15% increase in clicks on Instagram, registering 6,703 from April to May. Instagram profile visits up 23% from April. Instagram reach and impressions were up 83% from April. New Instagram followers was up 93% from April. And a total of 22,942 followers by May 31st. Facebook reach in April was up 235%. This is what brings tourists to town. I think we're doing rather well. If you want a full copy of what the Paradise has we can email that to you. I gave a copy to Mr. McClung and Mr. Ott. Some of the current things that we're doing, we've got the Festival of the Arts, we funded for $25,000, drumming in the park, $2,000, concerts in the park, $25,000. That started it on the 4th of July weekend and will continue until mid-September. 2022 Mardi Gras funding, $10,000. We had an amazing 4th of July fireworks show, $7,500, worked with the partnership in the park with the Parks Department. And we have funded the Folk Festival, $40,000, and that is rolling along. We have hired Nancy Paddock to handle that, and I think that's going to be a wonderful series. So we've hired an intern, Molly Horton, who is working very hard to execute much of the legwork in getting these events and items moving along for this year. She is working closely with Paradise to be their feet on the ground here in Eureka Springs. And we will soon have a tourism director that will be a liaison with all the collectors and also with Paradise and the commission.
Okay, recap. The first meeting of 2021 was a workshop where goals and immediate concerns were addressed. Discussion was on events, need for events and still ongoing pandemic, hiring a director, social media, oversight of the ad agency, state and city codes for CAPC commissioners, prudent use of tax collected money, and a second meeting was added to each month. Committees have been formed for events, new job descriptions for and hiring a tourism director, auditorium uses and director, hiring an intern, online and social media. The commission understood that what was applicable a few years ago was no longer applicable for rapidly changing online promotion and advertising for tourism, the understanding of new and different interests, understanding new and unique businesses, and tourism's new needs and wants. The commission took a hard look at the budget that was passed last year and saw salaries budgeted at $277,000 and budgeted expense accounts at $240,000, totaling $517,000, bringing it to over a third of our budget. New budgeting is in the process of bringing applicable changes to the staff and expense accounts. Staffing should come in at about $175,000 and expense accounts at about $120,000, a savings of over $200,000. With the help of the tourism executive, Len Berry, a committee was able to identify the changing marketing that we needed a new and different job and description for a director. A search for that person was launched nationwide with the field narrowed down to 2. A decision will probably be made within the next 10 days. With Jeff's experience in business and online marketing, adding Patrick Burnett as a commissioner, along with his background in graphic design, ad agency, and social media, quickly gave us the ability to understand the fast-changing online tourism promotion. We quickly saw how inadequate our social media had been. Patrick's expertise and knowledge created the need for us at this time to hire professionals to expand our social media present with the analytics that in 3 weeks we had more interaction than we'd had in a year. The biggest and best surprise has been Harry. We can credit his work on the auditorium, the intern, job descriptions, and hiring of a tourism director. Losing Patrick was a huge loss. The Odd Committee is working on making the auditorium viable with new ideas for use and maintaining. Work is in the process for upcoming concerts. Plans include creating a 5-year plan, budgeting, and completing the much-needed maintenance. The commission hired Molly Horton with an extensive background in education and tourism as our first intern. I am amazingly stunned at the amount of work that she accomplished in less than a month, along with auditorium tech Ron Sumner. A fantastic summer music series has started, including a schedule and a poster that we can use to promote our town. Her other accomplishments in such a short period are too numerous to list. We do have the list if you need to see them. Molly and Ron are both involved with the Folk Festival. Phones are ringing with promoters anxious to get their events booked again. The CAPC Folk Festival with new promoter Nancy Paddock and committee. One privately promoted show is being lined up for the auditorium, plus other festivities. Using a private concert promoter ensures spectacular shows at no cost to us. More info to come as they develop the events and concerts. All the events that the CAPC is responsible for are on track to happen this year. Tax collection using pre-pandemic numbers are up by approximately 25 to 29%. March and April this year, I believe, set records. One need only look outside to see the packed streets, no vacancy signs, lines waiting to get in. Unfortunately, change doesn't come without controversy. I knew hard and unpopular decisions might be made. What I didn't anticipate, the immediate attacks on Harry and myself as soon as we were elected. Some of our staff publicly stating we were illegally elected or we were anti-business. Nor did I understand the vitriol dissension between the staff and the commission that continued immediately at my first meeting. In my opinion, this commission has been unfairly vilified and harangued, having to miss 2 months of meetings to conduct business. After hard decisions, the commission made results have been working side by side with the staff with dignity, respect, and continuity, and the mission to make our tourism better. Again, one need only watch our meetings or look outside on the streets to see our results.
Any questions, comments? Mr. McClung?
Yeah, there's no question about the qualifications of the ad company. They're
And I
good.
thank you for that.
They're good. Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a win when we got connected with them. They do have, if I recall correctly, they have some way to report heads on beds now,
Yes.
or heads in beds, however you want to look at it. And that's what I like to see. Because, I mean, that really tells the tale if we're bringing more people to town or not. You know, whether they're day trippers, you know, that's always been what I've been after at the CAPC is, you know, qualifying those numbers.
Right.
And it's always been unreachable. Nobody was willing to volunteer any of that. But now I think they have a way to quantify that, or to qualify it, whatever the correct phrase is there. And that's critical, because I still get out every day, early in the morning, and I look at the motels, and the weekends are usually full, but the weeks are not.
Right.
Midweeks are not. And I talk to collectors and what they're doing, and they're not renting as many rooms as they did 2 years ago, but the revenue's up because they are charging a lot more money. So, you know, and that's great. I'm glad that they're doing better in that respect. But, you know, it's, the proof in the pudding is heads in beds. And that's what we need to know.
I agree with you. And what I'm seeing, Terry, unfortunately, part of it's still COVID-related with some of the motels. But what the intern that we interviewed today, one of her big things is something that's very dear to me. We've got to get this midweek. And small conventions, small trade shows, inspirational speakers. Sure. And that's what we're going to head for. And those are the type of places that get into the motels. And I know the motels suffered dearly last year because they host a lot of those events. And they don't just go Friday, Saturday. They start coming on Wednesday and they stay over till Monday. And they're back on track. So I've got my fingers crossed this fall that the motels are going to see an upswing in their weekday traffic.
Now, you just said you're going to hire another intern, is that correct?
No, I mean, I'm sorry. The applicant for the tourism director today.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I miss.
What is their name?
Her name today was Madison Dawson. And we will be, Gary, I'm not even sure of his last name, is going to be interviewed next week.
Another thing, this information used to be on capc.biz. Is that still not being done? All the CAPC numbers and everything, all these analyticals, figures and all, were being posted on capc.biz.
Okay. I will check into that, and that they should be.
Yeah, I just
Harry, do you know?
it myself.
Well, I believe they are. I think a link to all of that information is on capc.biz. And there again, you know, with the fact that we've not been able to meet and we've not been able to, and certain things that we've not been able to do as a commission because of the litigation that's going on has really hampered progress. But just the same, we've made some good steps in the right direction. There were some updated and repaired links on the website that had been, I don't know how long they've been messed up, and photos that were bad, and and by the way, the jobs that we have advertised have been advertised on the capc.biz website. So it's not like we've had some good applicants. We've gone through them. Anybody could have applied.
It was nationwide. It was a nationwide search.
Where did these people come from, Gary and Madison?
Gary and Madison, we ended up with 10, and slowly it got, some of them decided they didn't want to, it wasn't enough money or other reasons, and it went down to 3, and at the very last minute, one said no. I think, Autumn, what I remember, they were fairly, regional, within 400 or 500 miles at the most. The 2 now, one is from Oklahoma, and the other one is now working in Jonesboro for a museum.
Yeah, Madison's from Locust Grove, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Why are the minutes not being processed quickly or approved?
What was her question? I could not hear that.
Why are the minutes not being approved? I keep hearing that that's why we're not voting on the Jeff Carter position.
I think part of it is because we haven't met for 2 months. We had a meeting last week that was kind of off kilter, and it should have been this Wednesday instead, but we had one to catch up, so they will be there. They'll be there probably for our next meeting.
The last minutes for the nomination for Jeff Carter, they just met last week. That's the reason it hadn't been approved.
I thought
only
they'd
get
already
approved for
approved him
ones.
already.
There was some question as to whether there were enough present for the vote.
I see.
So rather than allow more for litigation, we met again.
Point of inquiry. There was also mention at that meeting that other people had applied, but then someone said they didn't apply for that position. Do you have to apply for a specific position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or cannot any applicant be, looked at for any open position?
Usually, Bill, when someone holds a seat and they agree to reapply, unless we don't like them or don't feel that they should, we usually accept them first, and Jeff graciously agreed to reapply.
Well, I understand that's what you've done. I'll yield to the city attorney. Is if a position comes open for, renomination or replacement, for that position, and that person wants to be in it, but they have received applications, should those not be made as part of the, he wants the job, but so do these other two people?
I believe somebody has to be nominated, Bill, Mr. Ott, before they can be.
And we nominated Jeff.
Even if they've turned in the applications?
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Similar to what we do, you have to be nominated and then approved before it goes before the vote.
Okay. So let's say that someone applies for this planning commission job. There are 3 people.
We're kind of getting, well, go ahead.
I'm just saying, do we just have to pick one and then nominate that person to vote on it, or are all 3 eligible for that position?
It's whoever's being nominated.
Then the planning commission does the nomination like for that position as well?
No, the planning commission's separate. CAPC is separate.
Okay.
It's a separate organization. They make their nominations and forward it to the city council for approval.
So they don't have to look at the other applicants? then?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Same thing. I present nominations for the planning commission to the city council for approval.
Right.
Okay.
And if there's 3, you choose the one you want.
Great. Or the one I think's best. Any other questions from anyone?
Are we still getting a CAPC meeting next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Or next?
All right.
We're back on schedule.
All right. Anything else?
Actually, we have a meeting this Wednesday.
This Wednesday, and then we're going to interview our last applicant and probably have a special meeting, next Wednesday.
All right. I think that brings us up to item number 3, ordinance for the Board of Zoning Adjustment Appeals to be heard by the City Council.
Motion to hear the ordinance for the Boarding of Zoning and Adjustment.
Get a second.
Motion to discuss?
No, motion to discuss.
Okay,
I'll
good.
second that.
Okay.
All right. In your packet, you have an ordinance authorizing appeals from the Board of Zoning Adjustment to the City Council. Prior to this, they went automatically to the Circuit Court. The state legislature allowed this action to be taken this year to eliminate costs to applicants so they wouldn't have to go to court to go to the City Council. Now, if the City Council upholds, the appeal, they still have the right to take that on to Circuit Court. But this would just be the first right of appeal. Mr. McClung?
Well, it's just my opinion, if they're still going to have that option to take it on to the circuit court, then what's the point of that commission hearing it anyway? Because if they get a no vote, they're going to bring it in front of the city council. So, I mean, I think that we should leave it as it is because of that. Am I making sense to you?
More, as much as you can, yes.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple logic. Either you follow me or you don't. If someone brings something to the commission and they turn it down and they're going to bring it to us and we turn it down, they're still going to take it to court. So if they take it to the commission and turn it down and it comes to us and we're not the final say, what's the point of taking it to the first one anyway?
We are the final say in the fact that we do approve it.
We're not. If you say they can take it to court.
If we approve it, then they don't have to take it to court.
Well, if we approve it, yeah. But if we don't, so
We may, I mean, it's up to the council. I've seen the council approve things that that the planning commission's denied. But I understand what you're saying, Mr. McClung, absolutely. It makes sense what you're saying. Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, since they can appeal it to us without spending any money, we're going to get lots of appeals. If somebody's really wanting their zoning change, they're going to come appeal to us first instead of going to the court. And, they could possibly lobby some of the members of the council to get that done, but I think we should just leave it the way it is, because it's, let them go to court. We have to trust our commissions.
Ms. Green?
Well, first question, we had some zonings that came to us for appeal, so it wouldn't be zone changing?
The Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right, but like I said, we did have in recent time, there was a bunch of them up on Armstrong and one on Prospect, and we heard the appeal. So what is it that we would be hearing?
I think we heard the appeal, Mr. City Attorney. Because normally we wouldn't have heard of appeal, I would have gone to court.
Yeah.
We
I'm trying to
heard,
remember exactly
we heard
what
it's,
happened there, but I
that
don't think that was an appeal.
Yeah, it was, because they were turned down in planning.
that was for CUP?
Yeah, no, it was for rezoning from residential to C1. One was to C3.
Are you sure they were turned down completely and it wasn't referred?
Yeah, one didn't get a second. They made a motion and there was no second. I think Mr. Ferguson's here. Let's ask him. Am I correct?
Yeah, that is correct. That was on Armstrong and didn't get a second, and so it was basically left on the table.
Okay, and there was one that
The ones that was disapproved, and it got approved by the council in the next session.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking, would it be just tree cuts or variances?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Apparently, we've already got something on the books that says that we do this, because that's exactly right. That's just like the General Jackson House. We had to hear that at the council level when they rezoned to, now did they get, well, I guess they got an approval.
Yeah.
Well, but because we have to change that by ordinance. And that's why we have to approve it. So if it changes by ordinance, it's going to come to us anyway. That's already set.
But the council,
Following. If it takes an action by ordinance, we're always going to be the final say.
of course, yeah. Mr. Weaver?
This would apply.
Okay, Ms. Armstrong, you got something?
These were not turned down by planning. The three that came to council, it was follow through with the ordinance to rezone. It was not an appeal.
Oh, okay.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
So,
It was referred.
okay,
It was referred to from the planning to the city
Okay.
council.
To
As part
approve.
of the process.
To
okay,
approve.
okay, I got that. Because if they have said yes, it still has to come down.
Yes,
Yeah.
So this would be,
if they say no.
so this would really,
Okay.
in a lot of ways, not include zoning.
It would include zoning.
Well-
Ms. Armstrong?
The way code
Yeah, I
is
get it.
written now,
Do you?
if the Board of Zoning Adjustment denies a request, it goes to the circuit clerk, circuit court. And so
My only thing, and this is something one of the commissioners, and I remember this too, is, and again, maybe Fergie can help me with this, there's certain things, if they apply and they're turned down, they cannot reapply for another year. Am I correct on that?
I think you're getting confused on what, between the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission. I mean, Board of Appeals.
Yeah, but I'm talking like tree cuts,
That's
variances.
separate, that's separate.
But isn't that zoning?
No,
That's
Okay.
planning.
that's planning. Mr. Ott?
Well, I kind of agree with what Terry's talking about. Just because the state legislature says this would be a good idea for y'all to do, and it's been going on okay the way it is, do we need, more on our plate? And if we've already got a way to address issues that need to be addressed by this body, by keeping it the same, this just seems to be adding another, dynamic in what we do, that if it's already going to go to the court anyway, if they don't like the way we handle it. But I just feel like that turns us into a court of appeals, and I don't know, there may not be any appeals to us, there may be a plethora of them, I don't know. But just because the state legislature says this might be a good idea, they aren't mandating it, they're just suggesting it, that we don't have to pick up that suggestion. That's my only point.
Ms. Smoley?
Is there any time issue that we need to pass this,
No.
start on it promptly? I would appreciate taking it up again at the next meeting, so I have time to do a little research.
Would you like to make a motion to defer it then?
I would like to make a motion to defer this to the next meeting.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of deferring it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right.
What was your
5-1.
vote, Harry?
No.
Thank you.
All right, well, that gets us up to, speaking of Mr. Ferguson, a broadband update from the Planning Commission, and I think Mr. Ferguson's going to give us an update.
Yeah, thank you, Town Council and Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I want to kind of give, and I talked with the planning commissioners, and I kind of blew them out of the water a little bit because I'm a little bit too techie. So I'm going to try to do this at 10,000 feet, if that's okay. So what I want to do basically is get everyone to understand what broadband is. So when we say a broadband, today's networks are completely different than they were just 10 years ago. And when you go back 20 years ago, these little things we have in our pockets, these little cell phones, have now become internet appliances. So by internet appliances, that probably every one of us does email over these, and they go through the internet. So basically, everybody uses broadband with their cell phones today. So when we say, a lot of people say they don't think broadband's important, you can't make a phone call without broadband anymore. It goes over the internet. It's called Voice over IP Internet Protocol. Anyway, so everything goes over the internet. It's all packetized. So one thing I want to kind of get you to understand, broadband, the significance in a tourist town, and in also our health and our hospitals, and these things are using broadband to facilitate the transmission of cardiovascular information to doctors in other cities, other things in other cities. So broadband is an integral part of our welfare and our health and safety, as well as the police officers do the same thing. They have, when I first got here, one of the things that I worked when I was a park commissioner, because of my experience in telecommunications, I was a design engineer for 52 years in telecom companies, so I do know what I'm talking about. But one thing I noticed, they had this weird little radio relay system for some video surveillance they had in the town, the parks did. Well, I noticed how unstable that was, and it was feeding into the police department, and they were using that to assist their officers in identifying any problems at Basin Park. Well, I went through and I tried to fix it. I looked at it, I tried to fix it again, and then I told the director, I said, we got to get rid of it. We got to rebuild this whole thing. So we did. So today, Basin Park is connected with a 40 megabyte dedicated Cox connection that feeds 24/7 to the police department and has a surveillance and infrared camera that is motion activated and has sound. So all that stuff is available today. Really just, I mean, it's amazing stuff. So we've got that. We want to grow that network. But without broadband, we couldn't do that. So that's why I want to get you guys to understand what broadband is, and how important it is. So for instance, if you're at your house and you're having a problem and the ambulance shows up and they don't have very good signal, well, guess what's going to happen? They can just keep you alive until they get to a signal area, and then they have to stop the ambulance and get a doctor to look at your cardio feed. So this is what's happening today. Matter of fact, the first conversation I had about our problems with broadband was with Chief Kelly, our fire marshal, our assistant police chief, our fire chief here. He said that at Lake Leatherwood, they can't get any signal. There's no way that the cardio units in Lake Leatherwood work. So the next thing I did, we got a radio bypass with Common Sense Communications bouncing a signal off the water tower. So now it feeds into the park down there. But anyway, but what I'm saying is that we need some work to be done in our networks here in Eureka Springs. So I looked at a broadband ordinance. Now, you all got copies of the state act that I sent everybody a copy of, and that's a lot of pages. But what I want you to say is that the state says we're ready for you to expand your rural telecommunications. So COVID happened. So we all found out when COVID happened that we were stuck at home, right? You had to get on your Roku boxes, or you had to get on your internet devices, and you all of a sudden realized you didn't have good connectivity. So a lot of teachers and a lot of students had problems in our area, and they had to sit in that parking lot at the high school because there was no other place to get connectivity to. So that was a problem. So we can fix that as a city. We can come together, and there's a grant program. Matter of fact, one of the things that is an issue with the public today is the cost of communications, getting connectivity. So currently there's a grants program that people can apply for that there is monies, and as of May 12th of 2021, eligible households will be able to enroll in this program. So they can enroll, they can get the connectivity, but again, we need to make sure that we have enough broadband capacity in the city of Eureka Springs to support that demand. And sometimes as a city, we have to kind of push those utilities. So kind of like you guys did with the water department, when you had the leaks, right? When I first got here, the 50-some-odd% of all the water was called unmetered loss. Do you remember that, Butch? Unmetered loss. And now you hired a contractor to come in, and that contractor identified where those leaks were. You got them fixed, and now I think we save 20, 30,000 gallons a month because we hired a contractor. So again, there's a grant program, the state of Arkansas, with the Arkansas Rural Broadband Program, that they will, if you apply for that grant, and I've got a letter here that says to all mayors from Stephen Porch, who's the director, the executive broadband manager for ARC Broadband Program in the state of Arkansas. So he's sent a letter here, and I'll send this to Butch and everything. But this letter basically states, real simple, it says that. Let me get it here. It says, "Dear mayors, county judges, and JPs, the purpose of this letter is to remind you that the window to submit ARC grants will not end August 15th, 2020, but will remain open as long as we have money in our grant program." There's over $500 million still there waiting to be applied for. Berryville just got $200,000 for their broadband expansions. Where are we at? We need to do this. So what I'm asking the council to do is, first off, there is a study in place that's going on now. The state of Arkansas has hired a company to go through certain areas, and we're one of the regions, that they're going to go through and do an evaluation, a broadband evaluation, to see where the shortfalls are. But one thing we've got to do is let the community know that we're involved with this. And so I think maybe when the study comes out, we'll know where we are, where we sit in this, and we'll know where our shortfalls are, and then we can move forward. But that's going to be the next step. So that's kind of our broadband updates. That's what I have for you today. So is there any questions about anything I've talked about? No. Terry?
Well, Ferguson, I appreciate your hard work on this. I really do. And you're right. I think it's a thing that's coming, whether we like it or not. And quite frankly, I'm ignorant on it all. And so, I don't know if it's going to fix things, or the radiation's going to kill me or what. I don't know how it works, but you do and others do, and I think it's important. And I think if there's grant money out there for anything, we should be after it. And so, I think that's great, and I do appreciate what you do. Absolutely.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else?
Question.
So I think the next step,
Question.
oh, yes, sir, go ahead, yes.
What does this council need to do now in preparation for this, or what will we need to do when to get this going?
Well, one of the things is that act I sent you a copy of, read that, but also go to the Arkansas broadband website. Like I say, if you Google the name of the director, which is Stephen Porch, the executive broadband manager, and go to his site, which is on the state broadband site. It's called Arkansas State Broadband is the link to it, and you can then learn. So I think really it's educating yourselves and understanding what that is, and then once that survey comes back, we need to be ready to launch and basically apply for, or right now we could apply for grant money. But I think one of the things we need to have is a grant writer to go in and look at some of the opportunities we have.
But I'll ask the mayor this, that's in more administration than it is city council, correct? For applying for the grants and all that kind of stuff? Is there anything, any action steps this council needs to take, either now or in the future, that you see that would promote this?
Well, the only thing I can say is just, learning about it, and when your constituents call you, know about what's going on and tell them what I just told you today about. There's a study in process, we're working on it. And but one thing that is a thing is that the reason why I'm here today is because you want to hear about this. So that's a start. So it's all a start. And unfortunately, Arkansas 2 years ago ranked 49th in the state of all the states in America in broadband connectivity, 49th. So we were on the bottom. So the state governor, that's why they launched this program, is because we had to catch up. We had to get out of the 1980s and get into at least 2000. So we're in the 21st century, but we're still 10 years behind everybody else in the country.
Fergie, could you spell that man's name for us?
Sorry. Yes, I will. And it's Porch, Stephen Porch.
Mayor, do you need any kind of resolution from this council that's to get you to take action on the grant?
Yeah.
That's administrative, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fergie,
Yes, sir.
we've had a conversation about this before, about all the fiber optic going through town, and a whole lot of it just bypasses town.
Absolutely. You're
So that, as far as the FCC is concerned, we have a right to tap into some of that.
That's correct.
Would that fit into this program?
Well, what it is, basically, yes, once that state survey is done, then we'll have a better picture of, and it's like anything, where's the water leaking at? Where do we need the ed at, And that survey will show us areas of our city that are in short supply of broadband. And that's when we basically, we have the city has a franchise license with one of those providers, and you can call them in and say, when are we going to fix this? When are we going to work on this? So that's part of, again, as a council, you can do that. As any licensee of the city, you could pull them in and ask, well, why aren't we doing it this way? Or what's going on with your network? That's one thing you guys have the right to do. For anybody who has a vendor license, whatever it is. And the people in the town, if you go to Facebook and you can look at, they're having terrible problems. They're complaining about these companies out here all the time. And that's another layer of complication, is that, sometimes it's about money. Sometimes it's about just, there's this river of bandwidth that doesn't come into us because they can't make enough money on it. So we have to figure that out, and you guys at council have to help. I can help you by providing the information, but at the same time, you're the decision makers. So, but I think the public wants better connectivity right now.
Ms. Lane?
I would definitely like to see this go forward. I know that I pay Cox a lot of money, and it's not even what they're offering. I'm supposed to get 200 download, and I don't even get that. So it would be nice if we could have more coming into the town, so actually the services that we are paying for are going to be
Enhanced.
enhanced,
Ma-
at the very least.
Mayor, could we give you a non-binding straw vote?
Well, I'm already working on it, Mr. Ott. I appreciate everything. I was waiting for the council to get through with their questions and comments first, and I'll have some things for Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, are you familiar with the Carroll County Internet?
Yes.
They are in the process of writing a grant for us. They're the ones who got the grant for Berryville. And as you know, when you look on the map, Eureka Springs says that we do have broadband capabilities, which we know that's not true.
That's exactly right. You're right.
And that's part of what that survey is going to end up showing, I think. But we met last week, or I did, and along with some other people, in Carroll County, with Rodney Balance and the Carroll County Internet to talk about the broadband grants and where we're going to go with that. So I'm hoping soon I'll get you involved with meeting with him also, because we know that we have a problem with our broadband here.
Yes.
What can be done and what can't be done. And it's not just, it's a city, and it's just the fringes of the city, and it's also the outskirts of the city.
Correct.
And so this is what we're hoping to attack with that survey, as you mentioned, and through there. And there's a lot of money available out there for the broadband, and I think the governor's willing to put that up there. And I know with working with the Carroll County Internet, they've had good success on getting a survey accomplished for this area rather quickly. And so what we're hoping for is if we can get something going, we'll have that survey completed, hopefully, I think what we're looking at September, October. And that would allow us then to go on and proceed to the next step, as you talked about. But I will be sure to get you involved in talking about it, because as somebody else mentioned, this is way over my pay grade,
That's right. Okay.
what they're talking about and everything. But I'm excited about the monies available and what can happen for Eureka.
Absolutely.
I don't have a lot of confidence in our providers that we have around here with the Cox Cable and even AT&T. Trying to get Cox to do something is like pulling teeth.
I agree.
You say we can have them brought in. Well, we've been trying to get them to do something about Channel 21 for the last year.
Yep.
And just getting a person on the phone is almost impossible anymore.
Yep.
But, so as you mentioned, we have to have an internet or a utility provider. So we're in that process, but I'll get with you and make sure you're in that loop so we can keep that conversation going.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Council.
Mr. Meyer?
We could have citywide Wi-Fi,
Oh, absolutely.
free citywide Wi-Fi,
Absolutely.
which would solve a ton of problems.
Right. And it could be resold, and anyway, but that's something that's what you guys got to figure out.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. That's all I am. I'm here to help. All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Ferguson?
Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart.
Yeah. All right. All right, that gives us the broadband update. I do have an ordinance for the Juneteenth holiday, if I can get discussion on that.
I make a motion to discuss.
I'll second that.
The federal government came up earlier last month in June, recognizing that the June 17th become a Juneteenth holiday, a federal holiday.
June 19th.
To go ahead and make a same holiday for the city of Eureka Springs, and that's what this ordinance is. So,
Excellent.
June 7th.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we assign this ordinance a number and read it on its first reading.
I'll second.
all right, do we have any other question? Mr. McClung?
Yeah, are you not satisfied with the way the federal government and the president worded it, that you want us to have our own ordinance? I don't get it.
Well, I
It's
think
kind of
we
redundant and-
we don't always recognize the federal holidays, so this is something the city hall
We-
will
what-
do.
What federal holidays do we not recognize?
Well, this was just, from my understanding, which we need to have this as an ordinance so we can close city hall.
Huh?
So that's all I know, Mr. McClung. I don't, you know.
I mean, it's just, I mean, it's already a holiday. It's there, we already,
Well, this is recognizing it officially as Juneteenth. This is something that's been going on.
you don't
in other
recognize what the
cities.
federal government does? I mean, I think it's a good deal already. What can you do to it to make it any better?
By the city recognizing it.
I recognize it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
All right.
Make a motion to sign this
We've got
ordinance and number?
Nope, we've already done that one. That's what the motion was on.
Yeah.
I thought it was discussed.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll need a motion here in a minute, Mr. Meyer.
Okay, ordinance 2308, an ordinance of the City of Eureka Springs declaring June 19th of each year to be a recognized holiday in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, known as Juneteenth. Whereas the City of Eureka Springs recognizes that the federal government did recognize the 19th of June to be a federal holiday on June 17th of 2021. And whereas the City Council of Eureka Springs recognizes the importance of the abolition of slavery, and whereas the city values the many contributions made to our community through African American knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contributions that have substantially shaped the character of the city of Eureka Springs. And whereas the city understands the importance of closing the equity gap between and by government entities, organizations, and other public institutions, and to encourage change in policies and practices to better reflect the capabilities of African American citizens and recognize their roots, history, and contributions. And whereas the United States federal government and the City of Eureka Springs recognize Juneteenth on the 19th of each June each year in accordance with the federal holiday established in 2021. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that the City of Eureka Springs shall also recognize June 19th of each year as a city holiday. Be it further ordained, the City of Eureka Springs shall continue its efforts to promote the well-being and growth of the African American community within Eureka Springs.
Mr. Meyer, you want to make a motion to approve ordinance number?
I make a motion to suspend the rules and approve this on its first reading.
There's no
Second.
suspension.
We're just approving this on the first reading, so we're not.
Oh.
Okay, so Harry was the motion and the second was?
I think Mr. Ott.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? Mr. Ott?
As a point of clarification, it's not so, at least to me, it's not so much we wouldn't honor this if we didn't do this. To me, this tells the public, especially those in the African American community, that this is our affirmation of that. Because I think anything this community can do to show of our cooperation and acceptance of all segments of our national community, I think it's a good thing. So I see this more as an affirmation than I do as, if we don't do this, we won't honor it. So thank you very much. But that's why I'm supporting of this, is for that affirmation. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Well, Terry's got something.
Mr. McClung?
And that's all well and good, but the federal government's already done it, and the proof is in the pudding and in the actions. This piece of paper, once we do this, it'll be forgotten. Nobody will remember it. It'll be done. And it's when the June 19th comes around, it's what happens then that's what's important. And it's how we behave. And we put what you say into action. Just the words itself are meaningless. The federal government's already done all of that for us. If you don't respect the federal government, what they offer out there, what's the point? That's what I'm saying.
I call for the question.
Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to
Approved.
to approve this ordinance on its first reading. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. All right, that brings us to our city council comments.
No agenda setting.
City, agenda setting, sorry. I jumped ahead. Anyone?
I missed the last meeting, but has any action been taken yet on the suggestion about the minimum wage for city employees?
We do not have any city employees at minimum wage. They are all above minimum wage at this point. So, all right. Comments, council comments. Mr. Ott?
Thank you. I wanted to reiterate something that's already been said about the July 4th festivities in Basin Spring Park. To me, it was a wonderful success. It was so good seeing people coming together again in a group, enjoying an event in Eureka Springs. It wasn't a real mosh pit, but there were still a lot of people in the park, which made it feel a little bit safer. But it was good to have that event, and I think the people enjoyed it. I was so glad to see Mr. McClung and Mayor Berry there. That was very nice to see them. The two bands that played were excellent. And I think all the people there truly enjoyed it. They all stayed, and they all at least appeared to have loved it from the stage anyway. And the other thing that brought to light was the new CAPC intern, Molly. Speaking personally, she has a very good work ethic. She not only gathered me up information so I could introduce the bands correctly, but then after it was all over, she went around picking up empty water bottles and putting them in the recycling bin.
Great.
So she's got a very, very good work ethic, so I just want to give her kudos for that, and to thank all those involved, including our sound man back there for the good job he did in setting it up. But it was a wonderful event, and it was a great way to not only say we love our country on Independence Day, but also that we love the events that we can have in this community. Thanks.
Ms. Foley?
No comment.
Ms. Green?
Many years ago, I used to walk in the morning, and I would encounter this character, kind of long, scraggly hair with a rolled cigarette and piercings, riding a little scooter. And, I thought, oh, here's another nut in Eureka. But it was obvious this kid was going off to work. Well, a year or two passed, and there's this dapper man that became a HDC commissioner. And I kept looking. He was dressed in a suit, short hair, nice. And all of a sudden I went, you were the guy on the motorcycle. And I got the privilege of watching a young man get sober, start leading a new life, and putting his life together and becoming a very, very successful business person. He touched a lot of lives in this town, and there wasn't a shirt that he wouldn't give to somebody. So I'd like to just say, please, Virgil, rest in peace. I, with so many others in this town, are really, really going to miss you.
Hear, hear.
Ms. Lane?
I know our business owners came tonight. I really don't know what we all need to do for you guys, other than kind of get the police on the same page or our neighbors on the same page. I see so many battles between our residents and our business owners, and it's just super disappointing to see that yet again, especially to a newcomer to town that I feel like has brought a lot of liveliness. And Lee said it the best. You used to walk by that and be scurry on. Now it's, a place of inviting, and I hate to see that, and I'm not sure what we can do as a council, but if it comes across our desk, we'll fight for you. And I'm still looking for employees if anybody needs a job. That's all.
Ms. Meyer?
Of course, this brings back a subject that that I talked about a couple of years ago about why don't we have the council approve new hires on the police department anymore? And, you know, supposedly there was a little ordinance that was passed to approve a new employee manual, and that negated that whole ordinance that gave duties to the council. Now, I totally disagree with the city attorney, but be that as it may, our police officers should be educated in our ordinances. They should know them without any problem. They should be able to know what to do when somebody calls with a complaint, look up that ordinance if they can't remember it, and then go out and act accordingly. And why is the police chief on vacation in the middle of tourist season? That's ridiculous. Thank you.
Mr. McClung?
Just to, reiterate what Bill said, the 4th of July was a great event at the park. Fireworks went off well and were really appreciated by locals and tourists alike. And the crowd at the park Saturday was large, it was full, they were up the street, the attitudes were great, mostly tourists, which was great. And the crowd that hung out for the parade the fireworks was like watching a crowd for the parade. I mean, they were just great mood. And if you don't think things like that create buzz and bring people back, you're wrong. That kind of, time spent on a trip, that just, it has that feel good to it. And people remember that, and they tell their friends and their relatives and say, man, I had a blast there. What a good time. And they come back. So that kind of stuff is important. And that's what the CAPC is for, and the music is great, and whether it's a watermelon feed or whatever, those kind of things just, the experience that the tourist has is what makes this place happen. And it takes people like Bill to volunteer and to help make that a success. And again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have to totally agree with what Mr. McClung and Mr. Ott were talking about with the music in the park. And thank you, Mr. Ott. You did an excellent job for being an MC up there on the stage.
Thank you, sir.
And the music was incredible. If you didn't see it and hear it, you just missed a couple of great bands. And I'm so excited, as mentioned, that we were able to start seeing our life coming back semi-normal, getting the music in the park. It's coming back a little bit at a time. We're not going to be able to go over completely right back where we were, which kind of leads me into somebody asked me before the meeting about drumming in the park and why we weren't going to do that and why I decided to wait until September to have the drumming in the park. And my comment is basically the drumming in the park, from my experience, creates a really close-knit group of people. I never see them being separated by 6 feet or more, and certainly not wearing masks, and that's just not part of drumming in the park. And it's a great event, but that kind of segues me into encouraging everyone to go out and get vaccinated. If you haven't been vaccinated on this COVID, it's a scary thing that's going on, and we see in Arkansas the uptick, and in Carroll County. And I don't want to see go back to where we were, and I know none of the council members want to go back to where we were a year ago and try to figure out where the 45% loss in revenue went and what we can do about it, or the businesses, and when everything got shut down because of the COVID. And the solution is to be vaccinated. And we need to encourage everybody, our family, our friends, and anybody else out there who's got any fear of getting vaccinated to go ahead and get vaccinated. The alternative is not pretty. We've all have seen people now and know people who've had COVID and are in the hospitals, and the hospitals are getting packed once again. And so this is a serious thing that we need to pay attention to. I hate to be kind of a downer on that when we're talking about having a good time, because we're seeing a lot of people come into town having fun, having a good time, and we're getting ready to see a lot more activities going on, and I'm real excited about that. And especially with the music in the park and what the CAPC is planning on doing. And again, my thanks go to Ron and the musicians and to Mr. Ott. But that also brings me up to the sad part too, and Ms. Green talked about it. Today we lost a citizen who has left an impact on a lot of people. I'm probably not going to get through this one. He'll be remembered for a long time, not only with me, but with the commission, the HDC, and just what he did for our community. Virgil, rest in peace. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved.